The next thing that we're going to do is look at the attributes. So I was discussing that in Active Directory we create objects, and each object that we create will have a set of attributes associated with it. Well, let's have a look at the attributes associated with this with user accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the attributes for our user that we just created in Active Directory called Kevin. If you double click on that, you will see that will open up the properties for Kevin, and here we can see all the attributes and things that we can all the information that we can add and associate with Kevin. So let's assume that Kevin is a sales rep in our organization, and maybe he is a sales rep for a particular area. So we can put that description here, or we can just say that he is a sales rep manager. Okay, so he's probably like the the manager for all the sales rep, perhaps in a particular location or maybe company wide. And the office location, we can add this. We can just say head office. Okay. Telephone number if we want to add it, and we can add an email address for Kevin as well. Going over to the address tab here, we can fill all the information that relates to address for the user Kevin. The account. The account defines a couple of a few attributes, and let's have a look at these attributes. It contains the user logon name, so here we can come and make changes to the logon name if we need to. For example, when we are creating the account, it asks us for the logon name, so that's what's registered as our logon name here. If anytime we need to change this option, let's say for example Kevin, we decide we have several Kevins in the company, or we hired another Kevin, and we want to define or define this Kevin from the new Kevin that we have. We can come here to change the logon name, because we cannot have two accounts with the same logon name on the same domain, right? Because that will sort of cause a conflict there, right? And the system, if you try to create multiple accounts with the same name, the system will give you an error to say that this object already exists with this name. Choose a different name. So here we can come and modify it. We have that option to do that. Here we can also lock or unlock the account. We have the option to do that. So let's say that we have a policy that will lock out an account if so many invalid attempts has been made. Say the user attempted to log on and they forgot their password, and they tried to log onto the system, say for example like 3 or 4 times, whatever policy you set. If the user tried more than 3 times to log onto the system unsuccessfully, the account can detect that as and lock the account out on for a certain period of time, or until the administrator decides to unlock the account. Okay, so if the account is locked, here is where we can come to unlock it. If the account is or if we want to lock the account, we can just click here and unlock it, or we can lock it from here. These are the different options that we had when we were creating the account, where we are allowing the user to change the password at next log on, or the user cannot change password. These are the options that we saw during creation of the account. Over in the profile tab, here we have 2 different sections. One is user profile. So user profile or profile path will specify if the user profile is actually stored on a specific server. If we specify this, it means that the user can log on to any computer in the system and have their profile follow them around to different computers on the network, meaning that when they log on to any computer, they will actually have their own the same settings as they would see on any computer they log in. If the user does not have this profile set up, it means that that the profile is stored locally on the computer that they're logging into. The home folder will specify a local path where the user can have their own shared directory or access to their own personal space in the server. You can either choose a local path, or you can connect a path through a drive letter. Okay, it is very common to have a portion or a space in the server for every user, and that space belongs to that user, where they can actually store personal files and personal info if they need to, right? So that's a very common thing that that you will see at companies. I'm not going to go through all of the tabs. You in your own time you can go through the tabs to see what attributes or what information you can actually add to these to the various tabs that are available. The member of tab defines which group the user is a member of. So, for example, if Kevin belongs to say the sales group, and you create a group called sales, here's where you can come and add this user to that specific group that you want them to become a member of, right? So you can either add or remove the user from the specific group. We have one group that is entered there, which is called domain users. So why do we have this group is because by default, when you set up an account or when you create an account, the user is automatically placed inside of the domain users groups. That's by default. So from here, you can actually add the user to additional groups, and a user can be member of as many groups as you possibly can have on the system, right? So you can create multiple groups. So it is not limited to one or two or three groups. You can have the user belonging to multiple groups. On the environment, this tab here defines if the user is logging in from a remote location. Let's say, for example, they're logging on to a terminal server, and you want them only to have access to a specific program. This is where you will come and define the program that you want to start when that user log in. Again, if this Kevin user was just a sales rep and you want them to they have access only to a specific application, and they're logging in from a remote location onto your server, if you have a terminal server that's running the application, then when they log in, you can define that this program starts as soon as they log in. This program will start, and that's the only program they'll have access to. Once they close the program, the system gets disconnected, or their connection gets disconnected, so they can't access anything else on the network. So you're basically restricting them to this program and this program only. So we went through a few of the tabs, like the member account profile. Some of the other tabs here just define additional info that you can add here. For example, under the organization, you can put the title of the person, the department, the company info, and etc. Now, all of this information is actually stored in what is called the schema, right? So the schema will define all the attributes that are associated with these objects that you're creating. The schema is also extendable. Extendable meaning that you can add attributes to these objects. What does that mean is, by default, when you're creating a user account, we have these tabs. Now, what if we want to add a different attribute and associate it with our employees? Let's say, for example, we want to associate an employee number to each employee in our company. We want to give them a number, assign them a specific unique number. Now, there's no attribute here that actually defines an employee number. So we have the ability to modify the schema So it includes either a new tab or a new entry in an existing tab that's called employee ID or employee number. So for example, under organization, we have all of these options here. If we want to say add another field here under company, so under company, we can have a different field shows up, and it will appear um, as a default when we create new user accounts, and that field we can actually call it user ID or employee ID, and it gives us a field to enter a number. So that is referred to as the schema being extendable, meaning that we can add attributes to objects if we want to. We can also disable um, some of the default attributes if we want to, but most times administrators or companies based on policies will be extending the schema to include additional attributes for these objects.